Hello everybody, here we are today and we're going to be talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins as they do a season preview over them. Now before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So Pittsburgh is a club that's been a mainstay in the playoffs for the past decade and a half plus, and then last year of course they were not a mainstay any longer as they were unable to make the playoffs for the first time in over a decade and a half, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was 16 years, and obviously now they have a new GM and some other people as well that are added to this club as they try to get back to the postseason and maybe even more. So what are some storylines to talk about for the Penguins going into this season? Well, we have to talk about Erik Karlsson. Karlsson is coming off of a absolutely terrific season with the San Jose Sharks offensively, and finally, after a lot of talk had been done for the previous few seasons, the Sharks ended up letting him go as Kyle Dubas was able to obtain him from San Jose for relatively a light haul. I think it was one of those situations where financially, obviously the Sharks wanted to get it off the books, but at the same time, the Penguins knew that if they were able to get him, it was going to have to be worked about a little bit. And I got to be honest, again, I do think that the Habs and the Penguins ended up pretty well here. And the Sharks, that's going to be another video for another time, or I probably have covered it at this point. But the point remains that the Penguins ended up getting the most recent Norris winner, and they got him with a plan for the future. I do think that looking at the Penguins, in their eyes, in their mind, they say, it's cup or bust. They aren't looking at this as, oh, I'd like to be a playoff team this year. They're looking at it as, we just got the first defenseman that's been able to crack the 100-point mark since the early 90s. They aren't looking at it as, oh, we got a really good defenseman and hopefully we're able to, get a little bit of a run going. They want to win another Stanley Cup with this core because they've spent a lot of money on this core, and they continue to spend money by bringing in Karlsson, and he is of course going to be a huge addition to their blue line. But at the same time, I don't really want you to think that what we saw last year is a guaranteed. Last year he scored 25 goals, which was the first time he had done so in his career. And this is also the same player that had scored 3 goals in 53 games just 3 or 4 seasons prior to this. Not saying that he'll fall back down to a 3-goal season. However, I am saying this. Before last season, he had not scored 10 plus goals in a campaign since the 2016-17 season. So I think it was actually 11 goals because I did think he had a 10-goal season in there. And then he hadn't scored more than 20 goals in a season since the 2014-15 campaign. So again, to have a career high at this age, it does happen. But to have a guy that hadn't done anything like that before, but also hadn't done anything near that in a minute, is something that you could watch out for and say, well, could we see a drop-off? Absolutely, we could. However, I will say this. Karlsson is a player that is going to thrive offensively in Pittsburgh. At least he should. He should pick up a lot of assists, and the goals, I'm not really sure if they'll be. At the end of the day, he's probably going to be close to averaging over a point per game, if not more, if he does get more minutes. Will he be good defensively? I don't know, but it really doesn't matter because Karlsson gets votes for one side of the game. If you're getting my drift for his Norris votes, and we will be looking at him being paired with Mike Sullivan as a head coach, that very well could say, I don't really care about the defensive numbers. We can do whatever to throw him out there. Maybe we're okay with getting more chances in those situations. Maybe we're going to pair him with more of a defensive line. I couldn't really tell you right now because Mike is Mike, and I am not Mike Sullivan, in case you hadn't noticed. Either way, the point remains we're going to be seeing Karlsson on a good team that has expectations for the first time in a while, really since 2018 for the Sharks, and we could be looking at maybe Norris number 4 coming down the pipes. Also, side note, how crazy awful would it be for Senators fans if they saw Karlsson hoisting the cup with the Penguins, considering that whole 2017 Eastern Conference playoff run? Anyway. Now, the second talking point will be, can this team avoid the lows? Last season for the Penguins, they won 40 games, so they nearly won half of the games in the regular season, but they weren't able to make it to the playoffs. And I really feel like what derailed their season, aside from, again, the deeper aspects of the game, is the fact that they just really struggled their first 38 games, which I think is where they got derailed. Their first 11 or 12 games of the season, they had a 7-game losing streak. I think it was their first 12 games. And then they, in their first 38 games, ended up having a second losing streak of 6 games. So right there you have a 7-game losing streak and a 6-game losing streak. So those 2 streaks right there account for about 10% of your season. And while yes, you're not going to have a losing streak like that the whole time, and yes, it's only 10% of the season, at the same time, that's 10% of your season. You're not picking up 2 points in a game. So kind of point remains to be seen. Can they avoid those bad slumps, and will they be able to get more into form where they need to be? There was points where they were able to pick up wins, obviously, but there was also moments where they couldn't pick up wins when they needed to. The backstretch of the season where they had those final 2 games against Chicago and somebody else, they ended up losing those. So those were really, really disheartening, and for them, they really have to be able to go out there and make the most of it, especially early on. I ended up looking at their first 11 games of their season just to see, about that same time span, what would be ideal for them, or could it be a problem where they get off to a slow start? They should theoretically be okay. They play Anaheim twice, they play San Jose, and then I think they also play Chicago 1 game. Yes, I think it's their first game of the season. So you have to take advantage of some teams that didn't really finish that high in the standings last year and try to get off to a good start, especially through those first 11 games, when you saw last season where their first 12 games were kind of disastrous. And for them, I think there's good news, whereas Kyle Dubas ended up bringing in Erik Karlsson. He did some other things too, especially working on the bottom 6, brought in Noel Acciari, and he ended up having a 20-goal season not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken. Other pieces to this bottom 6 could really help them out, as a lot of people have been talking about those bottom 6 additions. So if you do have a good bottom 6, or a better bottom 6 than last year, and you have a guy like Karlsson that's going to go out there and be a beast for you offensively and just eat up minutes on the blue line, that could be a really good thing. And they just have to make sure that they don't have multiple 6-game losing streaks or more. So the final talking point is whether or not trouble is still brewing. For the Penguins, it kind of feels like a lot of what I said with the Rangers in my season preview over them. Their important guys were pretty darn healthy. You look at guys like Crosby, Malkin, Gitzel, etc. They played, and they probably played the whole season, if not most of the season. I'm talking like 78, 79 games, something around there. And that is something you like to see if you want to be able to make the playoffs. But at the same time, if you have your big guys play the whole season, you don't make the playoffs the season prior, that is a little concerning. Now, Jake is still going to be coming back from, ankle surgery, I think. So he's going to miss some time at the beginning of the season. Not ideal there, considering he has got multiple really, really good years goal scoring wise. And then also I look at Pittsburgh too, and I'm like, man, they have got multiple key players that are not only in their 30s, but are kind of approaching their 40s. So that is something you have to look out for as well. And you got to factor in too that with Father Time being mentioned, they have one of the league's oldest teams by average age. I think they are actually the oldest team, 31.9 years average age. Pretty impressive there. And they are a team that has some weird health instances that could be a problem coming up. Erik Karlsson's been a guy that's missed huge chunks of seasons before, and you're hoping that he is healthy, but obviously that is something we've seen before with him. And then Chris Letang. This is not Chris's fault at all, but obviously he's had 2 strokes now over the course of his career. I mean, to be honest with him, I would really almost rather see him retire than to risk having a stroke, even out there on the ice or something like that. I just really want him to be safe and to really get to live a long life. But again, for Pittsburgh, you just never really know with something like that if he's not going to be able to play hockey. And so just watching out for a bunch of really weird stuff. Again, that is something super serious that I don't really want to act like it is a joking manner. It's 100% serious, and is why I think just with Pittsburgh there's some weird things with age and stuff like that. So I do think trouble could be brewing, but if they are able to have those guys out there for the full season, they should be in the mix of it. So overall, what are my thoughts for Pittsburgh? Well, they are a club that has set some pretty high standards for themselves over the years, and they failed to meet those standards last season. There was a lot of things that ended up going wrong, as my dog is sighing right now because he knows that they failed to meet the expectations anyway. But with it being said, they are a club that really has made a lot of additions to try to push their chips in and not only get back to the playoffs, but try to win that 4th Stanley Cup with this group, this core of Malkin, Letang, and Crosby. Now, Karlsson is going to be one of those older guys that they brought in, and he is obviously going to be getting paid a decent amount. I don't remember how much San Jose is eating up there, but also the point remains that the Penguins haven't won a playoff series since 2018. It's going to be 6 years going into this playoffs, which blows my mind. Has it been 2018? Really? I think so. Thinking my notes. Either way, that is crazy, and I know that it probably won't be easy to get there, but I look at this roster on paper, and I do think they're good enough to make it to the postseason. The East is a crazy mess this year with how many good teams there are, so why not Pittsburgh for cup number 4 in the Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and now Carlson era? But anyway, what are your thoughts on this club? Leave your comments down below in the comment section. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody, please make sure to stay safe. Have a great night, and you go love hockey, alright? Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.